Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. This week we can expect to see some big moves in the price of both gold and silver. Now, whether those moves will be to the upside or to the downside remains to be seen, and it's going to depend on some important developments that will be playing out as the week goes along. Now, to set the stage for where we're at with gold and silver, let's take a look at the 3-month charts of both metals courtesy of SD Bullion. You can see that while both metals have bounced a bit from the lows of last month, they're still significantly lower than they were at the beginning of February. So will the metals continue their upward movement here, or is there more pain in store? Well, that may very well be determined by some of the events that will be playing out this week, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Today's video is brought to you by silverbotanicals.com and their line of household and personal hygiene products powered by nano silver. You can check them out with the link down in the description. Don't forget to use coupon code STACKER to save 10% off your order. So what's happening this week that's going to be so important for the precious metals? Well, one of the big developments is that on Friday, we're going to be getting the jobs numbers for January. According to a survey by Bloomberg, the median forecast is for the addition of 215,000 jobs. Now, if you recall, the jobs numbers that we got last month, the ones from February, they beat all expectations, more than 500,000 jobs added. And that turned out to be pretty bad news for the precious metals. I mean, it's part of this whole weird, bizarro dynamic that we've been discussing on this channel for some time. Good news is bad news is good news, that sort of thing. So many jobs being added caused investors to believe that, hey, you know, the economy is doing great. We also got some higher than expected inflation numbers last month, and all of this has caused investors to believe that the Fed may be getting more aggressive in their fight against inflation and in their series of rate hikes. In fact, if we take a look at the FedWatch tool from the CME, there is now a 30% chance of a 50 basis point hike at the next Fed FOMC meeting, which will be taking place on March 21st and March 22nd. And so on Friday, if we do get a higher than expected jobs number, you can expect some more pain for the precious metals. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's likely. In fact, last month, a lot of the gains that we saw in the January numbers were the result of seasonal adjustments and, fiddling with the data. So I don't know if we're going to see more of that on Friday. But of course, there's the old saying, 86% of statistics are inaccurate, right? So the thing about these numbers is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the powers that be, they can kind of fiddle with these numbers to tell any story that they want. And so, we may end up seeing another beat. I mean, who knows? And if we do, it could mean more pain. Now, the opposite is also true. If we get a weaker than expected jobs number, that may put some upward pressure on the precious metals, and we may see some gains. But in addition to the jobs numbers this week, we also have Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell delivering congressional testimony on Tuesday and Wednesday. He'll be delivering the Fed's semi-annual monetary policy report in front of Congress, and it's very likely that some of the lawmakers who are questioning Powell will be asking about the possibility of a 50 basis point hike at the end of this month. Should Powell deliver some hawkish commentary, he may boost that expectation of a 50 basis point hike even higher than it is today. And if he does that, that also may trigger a pullback in the price of the precious metals. Now, again, also the opposite could be true. Should Powell come across as more dovish, then, that may boost the price of the precious metals. And, all of this is just a sign of how weird the markets have gotten, the lack of price discovery, how markets are hanging on every word of central bankers when they come out and do things like deliver congressional testimony. But that's the market that we live in. It's one that is hopelessly addicted to easy money from the Federal Reserve and where real price discovery is a thing of the past. So both of those developments, both Powell's testimony in front of Congress and the jobs numbers that we'll be getting on Friday, are things you should pay close attention to, because they will have a significant impact on not just the price of the metals, but also just on markets as a whole. But as for me, should we see some more pain, I will view it primarily as a buying opportunity in both metals, because let's face it, regardless of whether we get a 25 basis point rate hike or a 50 basis point rate hike, if you ask me, the Fed's fight against inflation is ultimately doomed. Historically speaking, the Fed would need to get a lot more aggressive than they are with their rate hikes in order to actually bring inflation under control. Back in 79, Volcker had to hike to 19% Fed fund rate in a very short period of time in order to bring down the inflation that they had then, and it still took years to take effect. So, this obsession over a 25 basis point or 50 basis point rate hike, I think, is fairly unimportant in the long term. Of course, it does have some significant impacts in the short term. But again, that's why I view any pullback on these developments as a buying opportunity, because in the long term, I believe inflation will be going much, much higher, and likely the Fed at some point could break something in this highly leveraged economy with these rate hikes, and then they'll be forced to reverse that policy anyway. When you have $31.5 trillion national debt, $16.9 trillion in household debt, and really just tremendous amounts of leverage across all sectors of the economy, rate hikes are something that you simply cannot get too aggressive with before you break something and before the debt service becomes completely unmanageable for those who hold the debt. It's not just me who views pullbacks in the price of the precious metals as a buying opportunity. You don't have to take my word for it. According to the latest data from the World Gold Council, central banks around the world continue their gold purchases at a record-breaking pace. Of course, 2022 was the year that central banks around the world accumulated more gold than in any other year on record. And in January of this year, they did not break that trend. In fact, there were 31 tons of gold purchased by central banks, net purchases in the month of January. That is a 16% monthly increase, and you can take a look at this chart and you can see what a significant increase in purchases we had in January of this year compared to January of 2022. So central banks have certainly gotten the memo on inflation and the dollar, and they are accumulating hard assets at a continued record-breaking pace. And so central banks, I think that they have a pretty good idea of what is coming. They understand the risk of fiat currencies. They understand how inflation works and how it is likely to continue to get much worse, regardless of how Powell and his cronies try to downplay it with things like their disinflation narrative, which really turned out to be a bunch of bunk anyway, as now the inflation numbers across the board seem to be ticking back up in a very big way. And so, very likely we may see gold and silver dropping this week. But, that doesn't really concern me at all. I think that both metals continue to be basically the most undervalued assets on the planet, especially the real physical metals that you can hold in your hand. Now, if you're a new stacker, you're thinking of buying some gold or silver for the first time, I do think that you should check out sdbullion.com/new. They have some deals where new customers can buy both metals at spot, so definitely check that out if you are new to the market for precious metals. As for me, I will be keeping an eye out for good deals. I will keep all of you updated on these developments. And please do me a favor, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do click that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I do really just want to say a big thank you to all of you for tuning in. Let me know what you think about these latest developments. How do you think this week is going to play out for the precious metals? I would love to know what you have to say, so leave me a comment down below to let me know. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for today. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.